ladies and gentlemen, the Committee on Public Property and Public Works is now in session. Would the clerk please read the title of the bills?
Bill number 160334, an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to convey to the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development all or part of a parcel of land located in the area bounded by Buttonwood Street, North 10th Street, Hamilton Street, Ridge Avenue, and North 11th Street for further conveyance under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 160366, an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to lease the Rosemary Montagno Senior Center Incorporated, the premises located at 12601 Townsend Road under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 160399, an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the City to acquire a bridge that crosses the Schuylkill River below the Grays Ferry Bridge and to acquire rights or property interests in connection with supports for the bridge and its abutments, all under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 160406, an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the City to enter into an amendment to a sublease agreement with the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development for the use by the City of premises located at 1101 Market Street, all under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 160463, an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property and the Director of Commerce, acting on behalf of the City, to enter into an agreement to lease and purchase from Tinicum Township an approximately 21-acre parcel of land adjacent to the Philadelphia International Airport, all under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 160464, an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property and the Director of Commerce, acting on behalf of the City, to acquire approximately 8.5 acres of Hog Island Road from Tinicum Township, together with all improvements thereon, under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 160519, an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the City to grant to the owner of 1140R South 15th Street an easement across a portion of a certain parcel of land known as 1129 South Sydenham Street under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 160553, an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to convey to the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development a parcel of land commonly known as 3033 West Glenwood Avenue for further conveyance under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 160554, an ordinance approving a lease agreement between the Philadelphia Gas Works by Philadelphia Facilities Management Corporation in its capacity as operator and manager of the gas works and Del Valle Realty Group, LLC, for Del Valle Realty Group's use of a certain 5-acre parcel and a certain 3.14-acre parcel located near Delaware Avenue and Tioga Street under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 160560, an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property and the Director of Commerce on behalf of the City to acquire approximately 1 acre of land known as Parcel 8A, located in Tinicum Township at Tinicum Island Road, rear, and bounded by Philadelphia International Airport to the south, east, and west sides, together with all improvements thereon, all under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 160561, an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property and the Director of Commerce on behalf of the City to acquire an approximately 2-acre property known as 8365 Enterprise Avenue, together with all improvements thereon, and removing a certain title exception with respect thereto, all under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 160562, an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property and the Director of Commerce on behalf of the City to acquire approximately 1.2 acres of land known as Parcel T, located at the northeast corner of Island and Escort Avenues, together with all improvements thereon, and removing a certain title exception with respect thereto, all under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 160563, an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property and the Director of Commerce on behalf of the City to acquire land known as the Orange Line in Tinicum Township in Philadelphia in the vicinity of Philadelphia International Airport, together with all improvements thereon, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Clerk. I'd like to recognize that a quorum is present to my left, Councilwoman Kim, Councilman Jones, Councilman Greenlee to my right, Councilman Dom, and Councilman Squilla. Is there anyone from the administration here to testify on Bill number 160334 today? Good morning. Please state your name for the record, and then you may proceed with your testimony.
Sure. Good morning, Chairman Heenan and members of the Committee on Public Property and Public Works. My name is Bridget Collins Greenwald, and I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Public Property. I'm here today to testify in support of Bill Number 160334, an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to convey to the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development all or part of a parcel of land located in the area bounded by Buttonwood Street, North 10th Street, Hamilton Street, Ridge Avenue, and North 11th Street for further conveyance under certain terms and conditions. The developer, SA 10006 Buttonwood LP, will purchase this property for use as a parking lot in conjunction with the recent purchase of 990 Spring Garden. The $1,150,000 proceeds of the sale will be deposited into the general fund. The Department of Public Property supports this measure, and accordingly, I respectfully ask that City Council approve Bill Number 160334. I am requesting a suspension of the rules so as to allow for the first reading at the next session of Council. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have a few questions. What is the existing use of the parcel?
It's a parking lot now, so we being the city, occupies some of the office space in 990 Spring Garden, so our city vehicles park in that lot. And we will continue to park in that lot until we are out of the building, which should be June of 2017.
So we're currently leasing 990?
Yes, we lease office space in 990.
Okay, where would we be relocating?
So we're currently relocating some of the units in the police department to 660 Erie. We own a parcel at 660 Erie, so the gun permit unit and civil affairs are both going to 660. We have a couple smaller units in there. We have an L&I unit, so we're looking for parcels where to relocate them right now.
So the parking lot that we own now, it's just for the use of city vehicles?
Yes.
It's not a for-profit? You know?
No, it's not for profit. We just have city vehicles.
Okay, and the property appraised, is that equal to the full appraised value, equal to the sales price?
Yes.
Okay, great. Is there any questions from members of the committee? The chair recognizes Councilman Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
Good morning, Councilman.
Do you have an idea of the size of this parcel?
Do you want to answer that?
John Hersons, Deputy Commissioner. It's 15,920 square feet.
15,900 square feet. So just doing the quick math, we're selling it for what, $65, $70 a foot?
The appraised value, yes.
How many parking slots can be on that lot?
I don't have that number here.
No, I don't know that number.
But in order to value the parking lot, you should know the number of spots on that lot so we can value on a per spot basis. And here's the other piece that I'm a little concerned about. 990 Spring Garden is in the path, and I'm viewing this with my City of Philadelphia hat on, okay? That's in the path of a lot of construction and appreciation, and we're going to look back on this lot in 5 years and say, can you believe we sold it for this price? Because it's going to go up in value. So my question is, instead of us selling this asset, could we enter into a lease with this developer who needs the spots and keep the asset for the city?
I'm sure we could look into that, doing a lease through PPA.
I think economically, if we just look at the path of growth that's going on in this area. That area is only getting better by the day. And those property values are going up dramatically. You know, Francisville, as an example, which is about 5 blocks, I guess, west, is the highest appreciating zip code in the city of Philadelphia right now. I mean, huge appreciation. So my only, I'm trying to think of the city's assets. I wouldn't be a seller of that asset. I'd be someone who wants, if they want to lease it from us, fine, enter into a lease with some sort of increases. And I'd have somebody from a parking professional give us an estimate of what we could lease it for, but that's just my opinion. I just think that we're going to regret selling these assets when we need money for the city.
Okay. What we would need to do is get with probably PPA and Councilman Squilla and the owner, the proposed buyer of this, and get a conversation going in that direction.
Okay, thank you very much.
Question on the purchasee, Buttonwood LLP. Would they be managing and operating it, or would they be hiring a management parking company?
I believe that they would be hiring an operator to manage the parking lot. They would manage the building.
Okay, so after this hearing, I'm sure you're going to get with Councilman Squilla and go over some of these questions. And if you could get back to the chair, this way I can inform Councilman Dom and any other members that had any questions.
Sure.
Great, I appreciate it. Any members of the committee wish to ask any other additional questions? Is there anyone here that would like to be recognized on this bill number 160334? Chair recognizes Councilman Dom.
I want to go back to this lot for a minute. The real way to value this lot is to have an architect look at it for highest and best use and what could be built on the lot. And then we come back into a dollar value of what the lot's worth.
I believe the appraisal was for highest and best use.
Can I get a copy of the appraisal then?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. Being no other questions from this committee, we have Councilwoman Kim.
Hi, good afternoon. Good morning, thank you. So one of the questions I had was about whether if we could continue to have a few other questions about the use of the property. Again, I think Councilman Dom has raised some serious, observations about that neighborhood and area particularly changing over significantly. And the public property is planning to ensure a sale, and could you just review again what the timeline would be on that?
The sale of the parking lot? Well, if this ordinance were to pass, then the sale of the parking lot would immediately be following that. So the sale of the building, we don't own the building, so this is just about the parking lot. So the process would be after the ordinance passed, and then it would be shortly after that, we would go into an agreement to sale and go into settlement.
And is there a timeline on what the process is after?
Well, it's all dependent on the ordinance passing. So if the ordinance passed, then we would just, it could be in a matter of months. It would go fairly quickly after that. There have been negotiations, so this is like the next step in the process is getting the ordinance approved and then getting it voted out of committee as a whole, and then just doing the final agreement of sale and then going to settlement. So it could go fairly quickly,
And again, this is city-owned land, is that right?
The parking lot is, yes.
Yes, okay. And it's in part because I think the councilman has asked some questions, and there's been some discussions around especially that neighborhood in particular about the water department has identified it as one of the areas in the city that has least permeable surface areas. And so there's been a number of discussions about how to ensure that whatever property is built there contributes to the environmental health of that particular neighborhood, that there's been a lot of interest to make sure that if there's any city-owned property, that it can go into the hands of folks who are trying to develop it towards purposes that are beneficial, environmentally sustainable for that neighborhood. So, and would like to just keep some dialogue open with our office as well.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you. I know that this is my district. I'm very aware of the property, and as public property goes through their lists, we as a city are trying to move a lot of the property out, especially in my district. When we did a study, the value of this property, do we believe that it's the best interest of the city to sell it at this time?
We believe based on the appraised value, and since we're getting the amount that the property came in at, and since we wouldn't have any use for it anymore not being in the building, we were willing, we advised to sell when, in meeting with your office, we were in favor of selling.
And the cost, where are the people being moved to?
So they're being spread out. So the major people that are in there now, the major units are gun permits with the police department and civil affairs with the police department. They're going to 660 Erie into a building that we own. And then there are some smaller units that we're in the process of looking for places to relocate them now. But we anticipate everybody will be out of there by next June.
What was that last one?
Next June, 17.
Okay. And they're moving into current buildings?
Yeah.
And what is is there a cost for upkeep of that building currently?
Cost of, like, the rent to the yeah. We pay rent on the space, which includes some of the maintenance costs and utilities and whatnot.
We don't know.
We don't own 990.
Okay, so, at this point, because I remember we discussed this previously, and I was in favor of the sale of this property. So, as we move forward, do you believe, I guess, as the city, that it is something that is no longer going to be used as far as office spaces?
Meaning the city being in there with
Yes.
office space, what this developer plans to do is put apartments in that property. So that's his plan for the future, to put
No, but
apartments.
I mean, our moving out was because we're consolidating it?
Yeah, our moving out is, we've been in this lease at 990 for a number of years, and we made the final determination, once we were moving different units in the police department, that it made more sense to put them into own space. So that's the civil affairs and the gun permit groups that I'm talking about. So there's been a couple-year plan now to get us out of that lease space at 990, so that's,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
Chair recognizes Councilman Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One other question. I'm a little familiar with this area because I know there's a big development going on from 10th to 12th from Spring Garden North called Spring Arts. And also, hopefully, the rail park's going to happen. And the rail park's not too far, I think, from this area, right? Pretty close. So, they're going to develop apartments here or condominiums? Do you know how many units they're putting in?
Do you know how many units? No, I don't know how many units. I do know that that's what they wanted to put there, though.
So the appraisal that was the highest and best use must have looked at what they're going to do, and the appraisal must have been able to demonstrate how many units you could put on the property so we can have an idea of what the per land cost is per unit.
Okay, I'd have to look at a copy of the appraisal.
Right, the buyer at 990 Spring Garden, we had nothing to do with that sale, and they haven't disclosed what their final plans are for the building, so whether they're apartments, condos, or continue to rent as office space, they haven't shared that with us.
So what do we actually own, the land?
We own the parking lot, that's
Parking
it.
lot.
Yeah.
And that was appraised at highest and best use for its current value today.
Which is
Right, I
the
understand
1.1.
that, but has the appraiser looked at what it can be down the road?
Have to look at the appraisal.
I mean,
You're going to get me a copy of that appraisal?
we'll get you a
Yeah.
copy.
Okay, thank you.
I got a question on Buttonwood LLP. Would they be using, is there going to be the same buyer or developer for the building that 990 building that we're vacating? Is there going to be parking for their apartment and condos? Or is there going to be a for-profit parking?
It's for right?
It's for their development.
residents. We believe it's for their residents, yeah. the
As
people that are going
to
in
the
there.
best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Okay. Any other members have any questions? More on bill number 160334. Again, I'm going to ask, is anybody here that wishes to comment or testify on bill number 160334? Well, thank you. Commissioner, could you please proceed with your testimony on bill number 160366?
Sure. Good morning, Chairman Heenan and members of the Committee on Public Property and Public Works. My name is Bridget Collins Greenwald, and I am the Commissioner of the Department of Public Property. I'm here today to testify in support of Bill Number 160366, an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to lease to the Rosemary Montagno Senior Center, Incorporated, the premises located at 12601 Townsend Road, under certain terms and conditions. The proposed 25-year lease extension of the current lease will provide a venue to provide much-needed recreational, educational, and community opportunities and services for its resident senior citizens of the immediate area and throughout the city. The Department of Public Property supports this measure, and accordingly, I respectfully ask that City Council approve Bill Number 160366. I am requesting a suspension of the rules so as to allow for the first reading at the next session of Council. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just have a few questions. Is this property owned and/or operated by the city?
Yes.
So we own it, all right?
Yes.
Are we operating, we maintaining it?
We operate it, we own it, we don't maintain it.
So is it the state's responsibility? Do we receive any kind of state transportation money for bridge repair, or?
It's the group that occupies the property is the one that is responsible for maintaining it, so the senior group.
Okay, what is the terms of the existing lease?
It started in 1990, right? So 25 nominal lease from 1990, right?
And do you know how much the city invested in, well, so have they been investing in it since 1990?
Yes, the senior group.
And how many seniors will utilize the center?
I don't know that off the top of my head because it's a rec thing. I could get you that information. I'm not sure how many utilize it.
Any questions from the committee? Any other members from the public wish to testify on bill number 160366? Thank you. If there are no other questions, we can now proceed with your testimony on bill number 160399. Which is my bridge questions, not the senior question.
I thought you were trying to trick me on a Monday morning.
No.
Okay. Good morning, Chairman Heaton and members of the Committee on Public Property and Public Works. My name is Bridget Collins Greenwald, and I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Public Property. I'm joined today at the table by Nancy O'Donnell, Parks and Rec Capital Projects Manager for the Department of Parks and Recreation. We are here today to testify in support of Bill number 160399, an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the city to acquire a bridge that crosses the Schuylkill River below the Grays Ferry Bridge and to acquire rights or property interests in connection with supports for the bridge and its abutments, all under certain terms and conditions. The acquisition will facilitate the expansion of the Schuylkill River Trail to the Bartram's Mile by creating a pedestrian bridge crossing the Schuylkill River. The Department of Parks and Recreation will manage the property, and the Streets Department will be responsible for the operations of the swing bridge. The Department of Parks and Recreation and the Department of Public Property support this measure, and accordingly, I respectfully ask the committee report Bill number 160399 with a favorable recommendation. We further request a suspension of the rules so as to allow for the first reading at the next session of council. Thank you. We will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Could you describe a little more in detail of the bridge? Your testimony mentions that the streets will be responsible for operations of the swing bridge. Will the bridge still be operating if it's only going to be used by pedestrians as a walkway?
The bridge, my name is Nancy O'Donnell. I'm Philadelphia Parks and Recreation Capital Projects Manager. The bridge is not currently in use. It's a swing bridge that pivots from the center, and it's currently open to allow passage of freight down to Viola, an energy company further south.
Who is the, Commissioner, who is the city acquiring the bridge from? And what is the purchase price?
It's being...
This is all you guys.
It's being acquired from Conrail, and the purchase price is $0.
It's being acquired from who?
Conrail.
Conrail, okay. Well, that's rare.
There's a lot of railroad property in that vicinity.
Will the capital improvements have to perform any kind of, investments to transform the bridge into a use?
It's currently under study, Councilman. The bridge is being required with a combination of funding from William Penn Foundation, DCNR, and so on and so forth. So it's being studied right now in terms of what kinds of historic resources this bridge contains, and so that is in process right now. I believe that the ultimate plan for the bridge would be to replace the whole superstructure with a pedestrian bridge, which would be high enough to allow passage underneath. But that would be some years from now. And if I may add, the reason that this bridge is very important is it's going to allow the Schuylkill River Trail, which currently is on the east side of the river, the Grace Ferry Crescent, to cross over to the west side of the river, where we're currently building the Bartram's Mile Trail.
Okay, great. Chair recognizes Councilman Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Just, I think it's a great idea to acquire the bridge. The only thing that concerns me is that we don't really know the cost it's going to be to maintain it or the structural issues with the bridge. And I guess we haven't done a structural analysis on the bridge yet. But what you're also saying is that we might just replace it with a pedestrian walkway and forget the bridge. So in the latter, instead of spending money to fix a bridge that we're going to eventually replace, do we have a plan in place today, maybe just get rid of the bridge and go right to the pedestrian cross bridge, and then do we know what that cost might be?
It's substantial. I don't know exactly what it is. There have been estimates, and I think there's someone here from Schuylkill River Development Corporation that might know the answer to that question, but I don't know the answer to that. But I do believe that is the plan, is to remove the superstructure and replace it.
And then where would those monies come from?
A variety of sources.
Not the city?
Not to my knowledge.
Well, that's a good thing. But the bridge is great. I think we should do that. It's a great thing. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Any other members wish to comment on Bill number 160399? Is there any other members from the public who are here that wishes to testify on Bill number 160399? With that being none, we have to, I apologize, if you would please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Zoe Axelrod. I am Outreach Coordinator at the Schuylkill River Development Corporation, nonprofit working with the city to plan and construct the Schuylkill River Trail in Philadelphia. SRDC supports this ordinance, which will authorize acquisition of an abandoned railroad swing bridge and miscellaneous land on the approaches to the bridge. This bridge will then be repurposed for a Schuylkill River Trail crossing linking South and Southwest Philadelphia. SRDC acknowledges and appreciates Conrail's willingness to donate this abandoned structure and the city's leadership on this project. And to answer your previous question about whether the bridge will be reused or replaced, my understanding is that it will be replaced with a lighter truss that's operable, so we'll be keeping the existing approaches but replacing the bridge and its mechanisms, so it'll be an operable swing bridge.
Okay. Any other members have any questions? Chair would like to recognize Council President, who is joining us here today, Council President Clark, and Councilman Green. Councilman, you want to?
I was just showing pictures of our weekend.
Share with the whole room.
Well, yeah. Hopefully you don't get hacked, all right? Thank you for your testimony. Commissioner, would you please begin with your testimony on Bill number 160406?
Thank you. Sure. Good morning, Chairman Heenan and other members of the Committee on Public Property and Public Works. My name is Bridget Collins-Greenwald, and I am the Commissioner of the Department of Public Property. I'm here today to testify in support of Bill number 160406, an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to enter into an amendment for the sublease development, to the sublease agreement with the Philadelphia Authority for the Industrial Development for the use by the city of the premises located at 1101 Market Street, Philadelphia, PA, by the city, all under certain terms and conditions. The city currently leases space in the building for the Water Department, the Health Department, the Department of Behavioral Health, and the Philadelphia Bar Association. The lease expires on August 31st, 2016, and the parties negotiated new lease terms to maintain the leased premises, keep all tenants intact, and extend the term for 15 years. The new lease term will include tenant improvements to be applied to the office space on floors 2 through 11, with construction being performed to meet tenant specifications. The tenant improvement allowance will be borne solely by the landlord. The Department of Public Property supports this measure, and accordingly, I respectfully ask that City Council approve Bill number 160406. I am requesting a suspension of the rules so as to allow for first reading at the next session of Council. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner. You said the terms of the lease is 15 years?
Yes.
And were there other options explored for the department in question?
Yes. We undertook probably exploring this about 2 years ago, I would say, and what we did, we reached out to, we did an informal request for proposal, and we got about 9 properties, I believe, that met our criteria. Reaching out to those various property owners, we whittled it down to 3 properties. We negotiated, we got proposals from all 3 of those, and 1101 Market came out the most favorable for the
It's
city.
been going on for a few years, right?
Yes, at least 2 formally, and at least a few others.
Right,
It's
so
been in discussion.
performed all due diligence necessary
Yes,
to get to this point.
yes, we have.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Dunn.
Thank you, Chairman, and just a few questions on the lease. Square footage, what's the total square footage of this lease?
It's about 179,200 square feet.
And what is the price per foot we're paying?
The price what?
Per foot that we're paying?
We are paying $12.50 a square foot, down from $16.50 a square foot.
$12.50.
Yes.
From 16.
That's good news. Oh, down is always good. And what's the tenant improvements that we're getting in dollars?
The tenant improvement is $37.50 a square foot, so it equals out to about $6 million.
So we're getting, on a 15-year lease, we're getting 3 years of improvements. So we'll pay for basically 12, that's how they're looking at it. And then, do we have a new base year on our, is there a CAM charge involved?
We have a new, you have all that, right?
New base year? What's the base year?
I think the total all-in with this lease will be approximately $21
21.
with
operating.
operating and utilities.
So it's $12.50 plus the base. What was the base prior? Was it higher?
Yes.
Yes.
Is the new base year, the new year, or we kept the old year, do you know? Did they bring it up to 2016 or 17?
I'll have to check on that for you.
Okay, and were we represented by a broker, or did we do this on our own?
We did it on our own.
On our own. And so who did the analysis for us on the city's end to determine this was a good deal?
In-house, we did, with our legal team.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thanks.
Sure.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes that Councilman O has joined us. Are there any other members that wish to ask any questions on Bill number 160406? Anyone here wishes to comment on Bill number 160406? With that being none, thank you. Commissioner would now proceed with your testimony on Bill number 160553. I apologize. Yeah.
519?
160519.
Okay. Good morning, Chairman Heenan and members of the Committee on Public Property and Public Works. My name is Bridget Collins Greenwald, and I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Public Property. I'm here today to testify in support of Bill number 160519, an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the city to grant to the owner of 1140 Rose South 15th Street an easement across a portion of a certain parcel of land known as 1129 South Sydenham Street under certain terms and conditions. The easement is being granted to JREIT LLC, a development company in the process of redeveloping 1140 South 15th Street. The easement will allow water and sewer lines to run service through 1140 South 15th Street. The Department of Public Property supports this measure, and accordingly, I respectfully ask that City Council approve Bill number 160519. I'm requesting a suspension of the rules so as to allow for the first reading at the next session of council. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do you have any idea what the future use of the property will be? That we're granting the easement for?
I believe it's available for purchase in the with the land bank, I believe. If it hasn't been transferred already, it will be at some future point. But the law department determined there would be no impact on the development on this property by granting the easement.
Is there adjacent uses?
These are adjacent to each other,
They are adjacent to each other?
and there's no other way for them to get the utilities
So
into
this
the
is,
property.
it is a true assembly with this easement?
No.
No, it's no way for them to get their utilities, though, without granting them the easement.
Okay. All right. Any members of the committee wish to speak on Bill number 160519? Is there anyone here now that wishes to testify on bill number 160519? With that being done, before we move on to our next bill, I do have Councilman Dom that wishes to go to the previous bill, ask a question on bill number 160406. Councilman Dom?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just a general question for you. When we're looking at office space with the city of Philadelphia, this was a big lease. 179,000 square feet is a huge lease, okay? You said you did go into the market and look at other options?
Yes.
And did you have a broker to do that, or you didn't have a broker to do that?
We didn't have a broker per se, but where this started was there was, in the last administration, there was a mayor's task force on facilities. You may have seen it under the Tom Knox group. So we had assistance by the brokers that served on that committee.
Okay, great. That's great.
Yes.
The other question I have, in today's world, office space users are shrinking their sizes because of how people are working today.
Yes.
So have we looked at that in this lease in order to, because whether it's a big 8 accounting firms or whoever it is, law firms, everyone's having smaller spaces.
Yes.
And different types of spaces, more open work spaces, less offices, and the use of square footage is shrinking. Have we looked at that with this $179,000 square feet?
Yes, and so we've been looking at that actually in all our leases and in our own space. So whatever type of renovation project we're undertaking, we're trying to shrink the footprint. So we are using things like touchdown space, where before, every office worker that just would come into town, no matter when they came in, once a week, every day or whatever, would have the same size cubicle as everybody else. So now we're utilizing more of the touchdown space, hoteling ideas, things of that nature, so we are shrinking the footprint. And
I don't know if you have this in you, but we should go into the market. If you don't have it, we should hire somebody for you guys to use who's an expert in this area to make our office spaces much more efficient than they are today. So we can cut down on the space we need and cut down on our overhead, because that's what everyone else in the private world is doing.
Yes.
And if you need the resources to hire that person, we should give you those resources to do that.
We actually undertook a study last year in the One Parkway building to do such a thing. We had a space planner come in and actually shrink the footprint of that area. It's exactly what you're saying. We haven't done it on a citywide basis yet, but we did start.
We should, it's worth the investment to have somebody even on staff. We're talking about peanuts in relationship to the savings we will receive. And you should, I think about it, make the request, and it's a worthwhile investment. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councilman. Commissioner, you may proceed with your testimony on bill number 160553.
Good morning, Chairman Heenan and members of the Committee on Public Property and Public Works. My name is Bridget Collins-Greenwald, and I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Public Property. I'm here today to testify in support of bill number 160553, an ordinance authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to convey to the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development a parcel of land commonly known as 3033 West Glenwood Avenue for further conveyance under certain terms and conditions. The property is being developed into a charter school by Community Partnership School Building, LP. Jocelyn Hillman is their current chair of the Board of Trustees. The $250,000 proceeds of the sale will be deposited into the general fund. The Department of Public Property supports this measure, and accordingly, I respectfully ask that City Council approve bill number 160553. I'm requesting a suspension of the rules so as to follow the first reading at the next session of Council. Thank you. I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner. What's the current use of the property now?
The property is vacant now.
And what was its previous use?
It was an old factory manufacturing. It's been vacant for quite a number of years.
What's the size of the lot?
I don't have that here. I
have it somewhere.
I don't have it with me.
It's an they're going to reuse the existing building?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have someone here that can answer questions about the development here.
About the development of the school.
And what was the sale price?
$250,000.
$250,000.
That's the appraised value.
What's this? Do you know the square footage?
I don't have it with me, no. We could get that for you.
If you could provide that to the chair, I'd appreciate it. And this is going to be fitted out for a charter school?
Yes. The group, Oh, it's a community school, I'm sorry, it's a K through 5th grade, I'm sorry, I said charter.
K to 5 charter?
Private, not charter. I said charter mistakenly.
Private. And who was the owner going to be, the buyer?
The Community Partnership School Building, LP. I mean, we can bring them up to speak on the school, if you would like, the use for the property.
Yeah, I think that'd be great if somebody can come up.
Committee Chair Heenan.
Good morning, how are you?
Good morning, how are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you.
Committee
You state your name for the record, and then,
Gabe Canuso, D3 Real Estate Development. I'm here with Eric.
Good morning, Eric Jones, Head of School at Community Partnership School.
I'm here as the capacity as an owner's representative to help the school create a new space in this building.
great, and I'm familiar with some of the work that you do as a developer, and interested in the education part of the end use. If you could explain a little bit about the K to 5.
Sure, I think Eric can give you,
facility.
as he is head of school, he can give you some background on the school itself, and I can answer
Sure.
questions about the property.
It's a pre-K through 5th grade private independent school. It's not a charter. We fund the school primarily through philanthropy. We do charge tuition, but on a sliding scale. The school is located in the 19121 zip code area. Just about, well, at minimum, 75% of our newly admitted families each year live in our catchment area, which we define by zip code. So 19121 and then 19132, which is Strawberry Mansion. We turn away just about 90% of all applicants. That's been the case for the past year, and that number is growing each year. So we're looking to expand and grow the program so that it becomes certainly a larger school, but we're looking to also expand the programming for the community.
Community Partnership School is currently located in a project home building in the 1900 block of North Judson Street, and has outgrown its space as of a few years ago, and is now turning away students and families as a result. The new building will allow them to better serve the community.
What would the capacity, K to 5, student capacity?
We're looking at about 225 at full capacity. And again, that involves not just programming for the families, the students that are admitted, but expanded community programming. So we have been working closely, particularly over the last few years, with the Greater Brewery Town CDC and Strawberry Mansion CDCs in order to facilitate programming for the neighborhood in which we're located. And this space will allow us to do more of that.
Sure will. Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. You may know do you know the square footage of the building you're buying?
Approximately 67,000 square feet.
67,000.
It's also located on the Amtrak Railway and is in a state of severe disrepair.
I didn't hear the last part, I'm sorry.
It's in a state of severe disrepair.
Right, so is it a shell, basically?
At best.
Yeah. And how big is the parcel of land?
The parcel of land is only a few thousand square feet larger.
How big is it?
The footprint is total 35,000 square feet, so you only have a few thousand square feet of land. The bulk of the site is the building itself.
Is the building, 4 or 5 stories?
2 stories.
2 stories. So the building covers most of the land?
That's correct.
So is there parking on the facility, or is there a playground?
We are actually cutting a notch in the building, demolishing a small notch in the rear side to create a playground. We do have our zoning in place. We have full support of both communities and full zoning already in place.
So basically, you're buying a building for less than $40 a foot.
Particularly because of the condition that it's in.
Right.
And the significant improvements that we're making.
Right. So I think it's a great price, by the way, that you're buying it for, not that we're selling it for.
If you're familiar with the building, it is.
Even if it's a shell. To get it to, you know this, and I know it, to get it to a shell stage costs more than $40 a foot.
Correct. We have serious improvements just to get it to.
No question about it, but I'm familiar with that. So I guess my question is, what do you think the impact will have on the neighborhood and helping the people who live in this area and helping the value of real estate and the lifestyle of the people that live in that area.
I think it's important to note that this school is going to serve the community that's there.
Right.
And we've gotten feedback from both Strawberry Mansion and Greater Brewery Town that they seriously welcome the school and have the need and are looking forward to the doors opening. So I think it's going to make a major impact to the students that are in the area, but particularly the families.
And a core part of our mission involves providing, broadened access to a quality school for families who are primarily low income or living in poverty. So most of our families, while they do pay something in tuition, pay as little as $10, $15 over 10 months, each month over 10 months.
So I will say this, normally if it was a private development, I'd argue over the price, but because it's for a school, I think that's a great thing, and I hope that you help that community dramatically, because I think the value we're selling it for is very, very reasonable. But for a school, it's okay. But I just want to make sure that neighborhood benefits from it.
Thank you. And the one thing that we're also doing is designing into our program space that will be for the community in the evenings and before school and in the summers, gym, conference rooms that can be used by the community.
And expanded after-school and summer programming that includes not just students enrolled, but community members.
But the other factor of this, I'm just thinking out loud, is that we're taking a parcel that pays taxes and converting it to a parcel that will not pay taxes, right? They don't pay taxes.
We don't currently pay taxes on it.
No, but if we were selling it to a private entity,
yeah.
they'd be paying taxes. We're selling it to an entity that's not going to pay taxes. Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions from any other member on the board? Well, look, and I appreciate your time, your testimony, and your creativity in giving back to the community and getting community involved and engaged, for the reuse of this property. Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Just out of curiosity, not about the brick and mortar end of what you do. So what is the education philosophy that you guys have, and what is your track record by way of outcomes?
In terms of philosophy, we are intentional in maintaining a low student-teacher ratio at 7-to-1.
How many per class?
On average, 14, 15. The idea is, building relationships with our families facilitates a strong homeschool connection, and it makes it hard for kids to slip through the cracks in that situation. In terms of the teaching and learning, we follow a whole child model. So we are intentional, certainly at the reading, writing, arithmetic aspect, but in terms of social, emotional, and physical development, recess, physical education, as well as teaching our kids skills that build agency and self-efficacy. These are all important parts of our curriculum.
And what, by way of outcomes, how do you compare apples to apples?
Sure. I would say, once that so we go to 5th grade, our last 2 graduating classes have tested above average. 88% have tested above average in language arts and math.
So small class size, what do you spend per student, if you don't mind me asking?
Right. The tuition is $12,000 per child.
So, and most of that is subsidized?
It's subsidized for everyone. So the bulk of what we raise, and via philanthropy, goes towards scholarships.
And your total school size?
Right now, we max out at 95, but we're looking to...
There's 95 in the whole school?
Right. I mean, and that has to do in large part with space limitations in the current facility we're in.
So if this doesn't work out, give me a call. Got something in the 4th grade.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We're hoping that it does.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions? No other questions from the committee here? Again, thank you for your testimony, conversation, and insights on the end use here and educating our communities. Anybody else wish to be heard on bill number 160553? I just want to note for the record that we do have written testimony. It has been submitted regarding to this bill by Eric Jones from the Community Partnership School and will be entered and has been entered into the record. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chair Heenan and Chair committee members. Thank you.
You got it. Yep, thank you. So is there anyone here from the administration that wishes to testify on bill number 160554, the PGW lease ordinance? Morning. Will state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony, please.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Heenan, members of the committee. My name is Janet Parrish. I'm the Executive Director of the Philadelphia Gas Commission. Seated to my left today is Raymond Snyder, Senior Vice President of Gas Management for the Philadelphia Gas Works. If we may begin, we have submitted written testimony on behalf of the Gas Commission and appreciate the opportunity to be here in support of Bill 160554. I won't read the written testimony, but note that attached to it is a copy of the Gas Commission's order in this matter by which it approved the lease that is attached to the bill in its present form. And that action was taken unanimously by the Gas Commission at its public meeting held on May 20th, 2016. Additionally, the Commission favorably recommended to City Council its approval of this same lease. We are also respectfully asking for suspension of the rules so the bill, if reported out by committee, can have first reading at the next session of Council. If I may just touch on a couple points, and Mr. Snyder can add as well, because PGW also has submitted written testimony. This is a ground lease of two parcels of land, one 5 acres and the other approximately 3 acres, that are unused currently and located between approximately the Tioga Marine Terminal and Philadelphia Gas Works Richmond plant, a facility that I think you're all very familiar with. And this was leased pursuant to a request for proposals process whereby the selected tenant was the high bidder and also proposed a rental amount, which is the subject of the lease, which falls squarely within the market value that was established through an analysis by Cushman and Wakefield. So in essence here, PGW will get market value rentals for currently unused property. At the same time, they have the ability to terminate the lease on short notice if required, to use the parcels for other purposes, and the lot in the meantime will be used by Del Val Realty Group to sublease to Glovis America, Glovis, for temporary storage of new vehicles. Through the Gas Commission's review, the lease itself, the language of the lease was modified from what was originally proposed to the Commission. We've incorporated certain clarifying and corrections to the language that was originally proposed. This does incorporate review by the City of Philadelphia Law Department as well as Gas Commission staff. All of these changes were agreed to by PGW and also accepted by the tenant, and then approved by the Gas Commission and favorably recommended to City Council. So that is, in essence, what we have in front of us, and of course, we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Janet. What is the name of the company that will be storing the cars on the parcel as a matter of public record?
Right. As I mentioned, that would be Glovis, Glovis America. And they are named and identified in the lease as the intended sublessee.
Okay. And has PGW leased any other properties that they have or own in the past?
Yes, including these same lots. I don't know, Mr. Snyder again may want to elaborate on that, but it's our understanding actually a lease was proposed of one of these two parcels several years ago, and actually it was approved by the Gas Commission, but the tenant withdrew prior to City Council actually taking action on it. And it's my understanding that the other parcel also was the subject of a lease in the past, which we address in the Commission's order. I believe that was involved the Philadelphia Regional Port Authority.
Okay, great. Does any members of council have any questions? Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So, did you say it was Glovis?
Correct.
Okay. And do you know what the purpose is for?
Yes, the purpose is to temporarily store new vehicles that will be arriving by ship. It's our understanding that would be approximately once per month. They would be temporarily stored on the lot. This is basically a vacant, unpaved lot.
Right.
And then transported elsewhere, I guess, to the end users or the end market.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, so, and PGW reserves the right to terminate the lease with how many days' notice?
60 days notice.
60 days notice. The term of the lease is 3 years, or 1 year with 1-year options?
Up to 3 one-year options, and the tenant, after the first year, if there are additional terms, the tenant also does have a right to terminate with 60 days notice.
So, again, just for the record, if PGW decided to have a longer-term use of those 2 parcels, 60-day notice, the leasee is gone, and we move forward with PGW business. Is that correct?
Correct. And that is the purpose of having a rather short termination period.
How many cars are they looking at storing on site?
Okay. It's our understanding, you want to speak to that, it's 1,300 cars approximately per month. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee? Chair recognizes Councilman Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
Good morning.
I think this is a good thing, by the way. You're taking a dead asset and creating revenue. So if you have more dead assets like this, try to find them. Let's get some more revenue. But I think it's a great message, not just for PGW, for any other department. This is a good thing. We're not making any money on this land. It's just sitting there, right? And now we're creating a revenue stream. It's great. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Start from here. This is next after this. Okay. Thank you, Councilman. As being no members of council have any additional questions, is there anybody else here today that wishes to speak on bill number 160554? That being none, I appreciate your time and thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much.
All right. Is there anyone here from the administration that wishes to testify on bill number 160463 and 160464 today? Can you please approach the testimony table and identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Committee on Public Property and Public Works. I'm Joseph Messina, Divisional Deputy City Solicitor assigned to the airport, and I am testifying on behalf of Shelley Cameron, the Chief Executive Officer of Philadelphia International Airport, who cannot be here today to testify in support of bills number 10463 and 10464. With me here today is Tracy Borda, Chief Financial Officer of the airport. Would the chair or the members of the committee like a map that we have that would help you orient where the properties are that we're going to be discussing in the next 6 ordinances?
Well, if you have them available, yeah. I mean, we could have them up here. Yeah, thank you.
We thought that might be helpful so that you could read it yourself.
Thank you. You proceed. Thank you.
Bill number 160463 will authorize the City of Philadelphia through its Department of Commerce, Division of Aviation, and the Department of Public Property to lease purchase approximately 20.97 acres of real property, which is presently in use as a public road known as Hog Island Road around the perimeter of the airport adjacent to the river. Bill number 10464 will authorize the City of Philadelphia through its Department of Commerce, Division of Aviation, Department of Public Property to acquire 8.5 acres of the same road. The portions of the road being acquired are those parts under which the river runway will sit when it is constructed. The airport has done extensive investigations on the property, including a comprehensive examination of the condition of the road and its appurtenances, an environmental report, and significant title work. These agreements were also a component of the comprehensive settlement agreement executed in April of last year between the city and Tinicum Township, Interborough School District, and Delaware County. I ask that the committee vote these bills out of committee with a favorable recommendation, and that the rules be suspended in order to permit the first reading at the next council session. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today in support of bills number 10463 and 10464, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Messina. Just a quick one. Why lease purchase some and acquire, and why lease some and purchase others?
Thank you. We acquired two pieces under which the actual river runway will sit. The Federal Aviation Administration greatly prefers that airports own the runways that they have. The rest of the road, which will remain open for quite some time before we get around to building the runway, designing and building the runway, was simply done in order to stretch out the cost of it over a period of years. And if there is no cost of living increase in the lease, so if you do a present value computation, it comes out very beneficial for the airport because it stretches the costs out. It's also beneficial to Tinicum Township, who gets an income stream for their township.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee? Councilman Dom?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just percentage-wise, what do you, the Philadelphia Airport, what percentage of your passengers are Philadelphia residents?
There has not been an analysis done on Philadelphia residents. However, I can tell you that 55% of the traffic at the airport is what they call origination and destination traffic. So that means 55% of our passengers either start their trip or end their trip in Philadelphia County. Our catchment area is much bigger than just Philadelphia County, however, as you
Right.
know.
But my question is, the residents, we have 1,560,000 residents in Philadelphia. What percentage of the total people using the airline, what percentage is Philadelphians versus the surrounding counties? Can you find that out and let us know?
I doubt that we'd be able to find out that kind of information.
The airlines have all that information.
Yeah, the other thing, Councilman, is that there are obviously people that travel multiple times, so it's a little difficult to kind of break it
Right,
out.
true that, from out of the area. I'm just looking at, from the total people from the area, I'm trying to get an idea of what percentage are people from Philadelphia, because in my mind, I'm going to say it's a very small percentage of Philadelphia people use the airport, and most of the usage is suburbanites. I'm just being, putting it out there. So here's my other questions that I want to ask. For the record, does the city of Philadelphia expend any money whatsoever to the airport in Philadelphia?
Hi, good morning, this is Tracy Borda. No, we do not receive any monies from the city of Philadelphia or the taxpayer.
You don't receive any money. Does the city of Philadelphia receive any money from the airport, though? We don't pay any money. You're saying we don't pay any, but do we receive any?
The city of Philadelphia receives sales tax on the sale of concessions in the airports, receives city wage tax on those that are employed in Philadelphia County. It receives real estate taxes for those properties that are in Philadelphia County that are taxable. Obviously, it doesn't receive real estate taxes on the runways, for example, but there are certain properties that are taxable properties.
So all the restaurants that we go to when we're going on an airplane, do those restaurants pay taxes, real estate taxes?
All the ones that are in the city of Philadelphia, yes.
Right. And then the other question is, police and fire, is that through Philadelphia or is that through the airport? How is that handled?
It is through the city of Philadelphia. We have our own police unit and our own fire unit that are members of the Philadelphia Police Department and the Philadelphia Fire Department.
And who pays for their services?
We do.
Yeah, we do. The airport reimburses the...
And how about the court system? Who pays for the court system services? It depends
which entity does the arrest. All of our Philadelphia police officers at the airport are deputized in Delaware County. So if someone would be arrested for theft, for example, in Cargo City, which is in Delaware County, they would be processed through Delaware County.
Let me tell you what my question is. My concern is that are we getting reimbursed if there's court fees or court costs or the DA's involved through Philadelphia? are we getting proper reimbursement? I just want to make sure financially, we're not supporting the airport through the city.
We can confirm that for you, but my understanding is if there's anything that's incurred as a result of something happening at the airport,
I just like you to look over everything and come back
to
the chair with that answer.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions? Seeing none. Anyone else here to testify on these two bills? Seeing none. Mr. Messina, I understand you want to give testimony on the 560, 562, and 563 together, yes. Correct? Please proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Committee on Public Property and Public Works. My name is Joseph Messina, Divisional Deputy City Solicitor stationed at the Philadelphia International Airport. I am pleased to be here today to testify in support of Bill number 160560, Bill number 160562, and Bill number 160563 on behalf of our Chief Executive Officer, Rochelle Cameron. With me here today is Tracy Borda, Chief Financial Officer of the airport. These three bills would authorize the City of Philadelphia through the Department of Commerce, Division of Aviation, and the Department of Public Property to acquire through either lease or purchase 3 separate parcels from the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development. Bill number 160560 would authorize the acquisition of an approximately 1-acre parcel, also known as Parcel 8A, located in Tinicum Township and bounded by the Philadelphia International Airport to the south, east, and west sides for 0 consideration. The current owner of the property is the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development. The parcel is currently vacant with nearly 50% of the land identified as wetlands. Bill number 160562 would authorize the acquisition of an approximately 1.2-acre parcel, also known as Parcel T, located in the northeast corner of Island and Escort Avenues. The current owner of the property is the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development. The parcel is currently vacant. The funds for the transaction will come from the Aviation Fund with no impact to the general fund, and approval for the purchase has been given by the airlines. Bill number 160563 would authorize the acquisition of an abandoned right-of-way for an old Conrail rail line located beneath the expanse of the airport and along Island Avenue, also known as the Conrail Orange Line. This transaction would also be for no consideration. The current owner of the rail line is the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development. Each of these 3 properties has been identified as necessary for potential future airport expansion efforts and are also basically cleanup transactions to provide clear contiguous title to airport property. I ask that the committee vote bills number 160560, 160562, and 160563 out of committee with a favorable recommendation that the rules be suspended in order to permit the first reading at the next council session. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today and would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Messina. Any questions? Councilman Dom?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, this is I'm looking at this from the city's perspective. So the city is transferring property the city owns through PAID, right?
No, the other way around, Councilman.
PAID is transferring it to the airport.
Correct.
And PAID is owned by the city, isn't it, or not?
PAID is a state authority, Councilman.
Yeah. So they're transferring it to the airport.
Correct.
And the consideration goes to PAID?
Correct.
And then...
Well, for 2 of the bills, there's no consideration. Right. For 1 bill, there is.
And so is that theoretically a transfer of PAID? These properties, are they owned by the city of Philadelphia at the end of the day, or they're not?
The city of Philadelphia will own them after the transaction, correct.
After the transaction, okay. So the city's getting control of those properties?
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Any other questions? Seeing none, anyone else here to testify on these 3 bills? Seeing none, I think our final bill, Mr. Messina, 160561, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Committee on Public Property and Public Works. My name is Joseph Messina, Divisional Deputy City Solicitor, stationed at the Philadelphia International Airport. I am pleased to be here today to testify in support of Bill number 160561 on behalf of our Chief Executive Officer, Rochelle Cameron. With me here today is Tracy Borda, Chief Financial Officer of the airport. This bill will authorize the City of Philadelphia through its Department of Commerce, Division of Aviation, and the Department of Public Property to acquire through either lease or purchase an approximately 2-acre parcel known as 8365 Enterprise Avenue from Woodsmith Holdings LLC. The parcel is currently occupied and contains a warehouse and office space that are associated with the current property owner. We have agreed to terms with the owner around a short-term lease which will permit Woodsmith Holdings LLC to continue to operate out of the space for the foreseeable future. The acquisition funds will be paid from the aviation fund with no impact on the general fund, and the transaction has been approved by majority and interest vote of the airlines who have executed the airport airline use and lease agreement. This property has been identified as necessary for potential future airport expansion efforts. I ask the committee to vote this bill out of committee with a favorable recommendation and that the rules be suspended in order to permit the first reading at the next council session. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today and will be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions? Seeing none, that completes our hearing for today. And we'll now go in. Is there anyone else here to testify? No? We'll now go in, recess our public hearing, go into our public meeting.
Okay, so we are now in our public meeting, and the chair recognizes Councilman Greenlee for a motion on bill numbers 160334, 160366, 160399, 160-406, 160-463, 160-464, 160-519, 160-553, 160-554, 160-560, 160-561, 160-562, 160-563. Councilman, I recognize Councilman Greenlee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the just read bills be voted out of this committee with a favorable recommendation. Furthermore, I move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading of these said bills at our next session of council.
Second.
Second. Hell.
Seconded. It's been moved and second. All those in favor will respond by aye.
Aye.
Ayes, the ayes have it. The bills just read will be reported out of the committee with a favorable recommendation and with the suspension of the rules so that would allow reading of the said bills at our next council session. And this concludes our public meeting. I thank you for all your time.